You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 25th of July 2014. Sorry paedophile pays £600 and is spared jail over huge haul of child abuse images. Paedophile Thishan LIYANAGE streamed live child porn from the Philippines and then walks free to care for his child. Sex assault doctor Nigerian-born Benjamin Obukofi is allowed to return to work. Dutch paedophile club to fight their ban at European Court of Human Rights. French court rules no halal meals in prison. Private jets, restaurants, luxury hotels, the good life of senior Hamas officials. Send an ambulance father beats homosexual man caught raping 11-year-old. Iraq, ISIS tells shopkeepers in Mosul that mannequins' faces must be covered with Islamic headbags. Alabama, a salutary tale. Thought for the day, a thought on our English gardens. And finally, 2 for 1 Day Friday. Sorry paedophile pays £600 and is spared jail over huge haul of child abuse images. A pervert whose laptop contained more than 7,500 of indecent images of children as young as 6 months has been handed a community order after a judge heard he was sorry for his actions. Michael Mount Stevens hid the laptop from his partner in his loft at his home in Bushbury, but used it to view the images and chat with like-minded people online when she went out, Wolverhampton Crown Court heard Tuesday. Police received information that led them to raid his home in Elston Hall Lane on June the 20th, 2013 and seized the computer. Of the thousands of images were recovered, including 1,568 in the most serious category. Mr Burns said, the overall range of the children depicted goes from 6 months up to the age of 4 or 5, boys and girls. Judge Michael Dudley said there had been a number of aggravating features, but Mount Stevens had shown remorse and taken a course to redress his behaviour. He handed him a 3-year community order with a supervision requirement and a requirement to attend an Internet Offenders Group programme. The judge told him the reason that courts take such a serious view of these cases is the misery and harm it inflicts on very, very young children. It seems to me the good start you've made by attending the course can be continued by a very high-level community order. He also made a sexual offences prevention order until further notice, and Mount Stevens will be on the sex offenders register for 5 years. He will also have to pay £540 in costs and a £60 victim surcharge. World at 8. It is just too bad the sentence does not reflect the seriousness of these offences. On one hand the judge says it's serious, and on the other you've made a good start by going to class to find out what a bad boy you've been. Paedophile Thishan LIYANAGE streamed live child porn from the Philippines and then walks free to care for his child. A paedophile who streamed and directed live child abuse from the Philippines over the internet has walked free from court. Thishan LIYANAGE, 36, paid as little as $15 to watch adults rape and abuse local Filipino children live on his webcam. The married father of one would then begin online negotiations and direct how he would like the child abused, typing requests that the adult would perform. Southwark Crown Court heard the victims were sometimes even abused by their own parents, who would take online fees over PayPal. It appears this paedophile who orchestrated the sex abuse of a young girl on the net was allowed to walk free by a judge to help care for his baby. World at 8. Where is the social services when you need them? Why is this bastard being let off to care for a child? The judges in this country never cease to amaze me. Give them an historic grope case from an old white guy and the judicial frenzy is unseemly to say the least. Whose country is it anyway? Don't answer that. Sex assault doctor Nigerian-born Benjamin Obukofi is allowed to return to work. Leicester, a Nigerian doctor who will remain on the sex offenders register until 2018 for 3 attacks against hospital staff, has been allowed to return to work. Dr Obukofi, 46, was given a 6-month suspended sentence for the assaults he carried out at the private Spire Hospital in Oadby, Leicester between 2006 and 2007. One of his victims, a ward trolley hostess, was just 17 years old when he brushed up against her and touched her bottom. An administration worker was subjected to 2 sexual assaults when Oberkofi wrapped his arms round her, placing his head on her neck and kissed her cheek on another occasion. World at 8. Talk about a culture clash. European news. Dutch paedophile club to fight their ban at European Court of Human Rights. The Dutch Paedophile Society, Vereniging Martin, is planning to appeal their case at the European Court of Human Rights after being banned by the Supreme Court of the Netherlands last April. The club's lawyer has announced that the case will be put to the European judges no later than October this year. Vereniging Martin has been advocating legal and social acceptance of sexual relations between adults and children in the Netherlands since 1982, actively seeking a platform for their ideas through engaging the press and initiating political discourse on the topic. Last year, the Supreme Court of the Netherlands ruled Vereniging Martin's existence as a threat to public order, emphasising that forbidding a club should only be considered under extreme circumstances under democratic law. The Supreme Court argued that an exception needed to be made in order to protect children. Gerard Spong, Vereniging Martin's lawyer, has announced that the association will be taking their case to the European Court of Human Rights in the hope of getting this verdict overturned. His law firm believes that the ban impeaches on the freedom of speech of the Society's members. The ban, issued last April, followed a long list of investigations into the group's legality. In 2011, the Ministry of Security and Justice ruled that Vereniging Martin activities were not punishable under Dutch law. World at 8. Oh dear, softly, softly, catchy babies. Moroccan youths stone Spanish paedophile. A Spanish tourist in Marrakesh has been stoned by a group of youngsters who caught him sexually abusing a young boy. According to Spanish news agency EFE, the uproar caused by the furious youngsters alerted police in the area of what was happening. Upon being arrested, the Spanish citizen denied raping the child, but later admitted having carried out the sexual attack. His victim also confirmed he had been sexually abused. The man is due to appear in a Marrakesh court on Friday. Under Moroccan criminal law, sex offenders are punished by up to 30 years in prison. Local online daily Moroccan World News reported there had been a recent increase in sexual attacks on minors in the North African country. The most recent ruling on July the 17th sentenced a 57-year-old paedophile to only 2 years in prison after he was caught sexually abusing a 10-year-old child. French court rules no halal meals in prison. A controversial ruling that ordered a French prison to serve up halal meals to inmates was overturned by a court in Lyon this week in the latest issue to pit the country's secular tradition against Islamic practice. A French court on Tuesday cancelled a November ruling ordering a prison to provide halal meals for Muslim prisoners in the latest legal battle over an issue that has caused controversy in the secular republic. The French government has sought to overturn the ruling by an administrative tribunal that argued that the Saint-Quentin-Vallevier jail in southeastern France should provide the meals on the basis that failing to do so would violate Muslim prisoners' rights to practice their religion. On Tuesday, a court in Lyon ruled that given the possibility for detainees to get meals without pork or vegetarian meals, to get special meals during the main holidays, and given the possibility to buy halal meats, prisoners' rights were being respected. Many Muslims view France, which is officially a secular republic despite being overwhelmingly Catholic, as imposing its values on them and other religious minorities. World at 8. If the Muslims don't like it, don't commit crimes and leave the country. There'd be a sigh of relief all the way around. World news. Private jets, restaurants, luxury hotels, the good life of senior Hamas officials. Hamas leaders are facing criticism inside and outside of Gaza for enjoying a comfortable lifestyle while the people of Gaza suffer. Hamas leaders have been often seen in recent days talking about the sufferings of the residents of Gaza. But while most Palestinians are faced with shortages and restrictions on movement in the Gaza Strip, this is far from the case for officials from Hamas, which has been the de facto ruler there since throwing out political rivals Fatah in 2007. As reported recently in Yonnet, Hamas has millions in assets, and it seems that the wealth extends to day-to-day life as well as investments and fat bank accounts. For them, life is about private jets and luxury, not warplanes and hunger. But as the IDF's Operation Protective Edge, triggered by Hamas rocket fire in Israel, continues, more and more voices can be heard inside and outside of Gaza attacking the movement and its leaders' ostentatious lifestyle. On Sunday, Egyptian officials sharply criticised Hamas political leader Khaled Mashal, stating that while the Hamas leadership lives in luxury hotels, it is abandoning the innocent Palestinian people who are being killed in their dozens. World at 8. Well, Hamas is doing what all their fellow Muslims have done, used them, and they're still doing so. All pigs are equal, but some are more equal than others, springs to mind. Send an ambulance father beats homosexual man caught raping 11-year-old. Daytona Beach, Florida. The father of an 11-year-old boy recently beat a homosexual man senseless before calling police when he allegedly found the man in the act of sexually molesting his son. The father, who has not been named, arrived home to find that his son's 18-year-old babysitter, Raymond Frolander, was in bed with his child. He then beat Frolander severely and dragged him out of the living room before dialing 911. I just walked in on a grown man molesting my son, the father states in a 911 audio footage, and I got him in a bloody puddle for you, officer. Did you use any weapons? The dispatcher asked. I used my foot and my fist, the father replied. I didn't proceed to ask him any questions, sir. He's nice and knocked out on the floor for you. I drug him out to the living room. He stood up and his pants were round his ankles and nothing else needed to be said. I did whatever I got the right to do, except I didn't kill him. Send an ambulance, he's going to need one. World at 8, I like this guy. Most fathers would have killed the bugger. Oh, excuse the pun. Iraq. ISIS tells shopkeepers in Mosul that mannequins' faces must be covered with Islamic headbags. The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIS, tell shopkeepers in Mosul mannequins must wear veils. The veil is in accordance with Sharia law since the human form is not depicted in statues or artwork. Both gender of the mannequins are required to wear the veil. ISIS expelled all Christians from the historic city over the weekend after the people were told to convert to Islam, pay a tax or die. The majority of Christians left only with the clothes on their back, and ISIS marked homes with an N for Nazarene. ISIS is also cutting off water supplies to Christian and Kurd communities they do not control. This is ethnic cleansing, but nobody is speaking up, said Yonadam Khanna, Iraq's most prominent Christian politician. It is the first time in our history that something like this has happened. Muslims and Christians used to live together. World at 8. This is religious persecution and religious hate crimes all bundled up nicely for the EU, NATO or the UN to do anything about. If the boot were on the Christian foot against a Muslim population, the media would weep hypocritical tears. I wish the name ISIS was not used by these animals. It is the name of an Egyptian goddess of love and fecundity. They should call themselves MBAC or Muslim Bastards Against Christians. US a salutary tale. An Alabama man awoke from a routine circumcision to find doctors had mistakenly amputated his penis, according to a lawsuit. Johnny Lee Banks Jr., 56, and his wife Zelda Banks, 55, filed a lawsuit against Princeton Baptist Medical Center in Jefferson County Circuit Court in Birmingham on Tuesday. My client is devastated, their attorney John P. Graves said. It's not known why Banks underwent the circumcision last month, but the lawsuit says he had been receiving treatment from the Urology Centers of Alabama when he went for the procedure. In his lawsuit he says he was never warned that the procedure might result in an amputation, and he never gave his consent for a full or partial amputation. He's now been left in extreme pain and has spent additional time recovering in hospital, costing him more money according to the lawsuit, Al.com reported. His wife is also suing for loss of consortium due to the botched operation. World at 8, poor bastard. And for the non-legal listeners, consortium means loss of conjugal rights. Obvious, really. Thought for the day, a short thought on the English garden. Well, you can't say it hasn't been a lovely summer so far. In fact, too bloody hot for me, mateys. Under the old umbrella and out at the minute the sun goes down to water. But I'm writing today on the way our English gardens are diminishing throughout this country, and that is not good. I'm not talking about our sad lack of arable land due to EU farming policies and the plan to reduce our ability to feed ourselves whilst at the same time building cheap homes for immigrants. We all know that that is going on. No, I'm talking about the man in the street and the change over the years that has affected the look of our towns and villages, and in the inner city areas has brought many large areas into the ghetto look, which ain't good. Firstly, apart from the fashion of paving over all grass whenever possible so that one can have trouble-free gardening, is a sin against gardens and British wildlife, not a fashion statement. Of course it's been adopted by the couples who both have their properties on mortgage, both work and usually no kids, and believe it or not, these types of relationships are encouraged by the plan. Of course a totally paved area in front and back in a floodplain environment is clearly not good for either your neighbour or yourself. Heavy rain sinks into grass at a much higher rate than paving slabs, about 60% more, and the runoff is minimal. If the Somerset farmers are being told by the EU or subsidised by them to pave over their land, the Somerset levels would still be flooded now. As it is, they are unworkable and uneatable for the poor cattle anyway. Forced lawns are making a big hit. Wonderful, you hoover them instead of mowing. I'm not against a bit of fancy paving or stonework, and indeed have some myself. But to do away totally with grass, bushes and trees is ridiculous unless you are unable to move, and then you shouldn't have a garden anyway. The English have always been known for their love of gardens, but this is now a thing of the past. The sheer number of stone and tarmac covered small gardens are almost de rigueur now, and many new builds have neither the space or the potential for a person to actually look after a thriving garden, however small. Of course this fits in well with the pro-immigration lobby. I think you can quote me as saying that you will never ever see an Asian, that is an Indian, Pakistani, Nepalese, Thai, Filipino, Chinese, Korean woman tending a garden in this country. The stone cover-ups for them are essential, or else the alternative is a ghastly muddle of kids' toys, old washing machines and other crap which litters what once might have been a well-tended and pretty garden. The Indians and Muslims sometimes do have lovely gardens in large houses because they pay for a Brit or European to do them. This is even more obvious when large houses or even new posh flats are occupied by the Third World, especially if the African Brigade and North African Brigade. A small bungalow well away from us was a sight for sore eyes when we arrived in Borden. We passed the guy working on his lovely front garden. Then he sold it 2 years ago. And I happened to see the new occupants were black Africans. I don't need to tell you what the place looks like now. An old trailer is in the front, nearby an old oven or something of that ilk, and the back is clearly like a jungle. At no time in the last years have I seen one of this couple working on either the house or the garden. Thankfully they've sold it, so it'll be interesting to see who they've sold it to and whether that garden will become pretty and cared for again. Talking locally, we have on our estate what is laughingly called an affordable housing, which of course goes primarily to immigrants who are of course helped financially to either rent or buy. One house has been rented by a family with 2 kids, and it seems ironic, but although small, this house does have a garden. But where will you find the brats playing and screaming? Out on the green area in front, which is there for ornamental purposes only. It looks like bloody Nepal on a very bad day during this heat wave, and they're the only kids that do this, apart from the African bunch in the next square. So my message for the do-gooders and the people who actually provide housing for these people is, don't bother with gardens. They don't use them or look after them. Just put them in a Coronation Street setting with a ginnel and leave them there. Furthermore, don't give them anything at all in this country. The English gardens of the large houses in large towns have been bought by mainly Muslim or Indian landlords who have no obligation to look after or see that their properties are maintained, just as long as the money keeps coming in. And it is this new influx of Rachman type foreigners that are having a huge impact on the English habitat. Many of them start building huge sections onto these properties without any thought of the land or indeed their neighbours who might have the misfortune to be attached. Thus the building site look is proving very popular this year in the suburbs and large towns. We Brits for the main have also jumped on this bandwagon of buying to let, and we let to anyone who has the rent, whereas even small humble houses used to sport a well cared for garden with a plethora of wildlife, including the now endangered bees. Now we have vast areas of slum garden land, as I call it, uncared for and going to waste. Now I may be thinking in the past, but there is no reason for us to lose the English garden other than our greed and stupidity in allowing money and immigration to take away this very important part of what makes us British. We do a piss poor job of holding on to or getting back our farming culture, religion, history, jobs, businesses, local councils and even governments. Do we have to lose this most personal part of living? Will we all end up wearing a burqa, living in a slum and paying jizya to the local imams as well as losing our traditions? Are we really that short-sighted to think that the English garden is unimportant and can be filed away along with all our other housing and living Englishness? Are these third world remnants that powerful out of their own countries? You tell me. And finally, 2 for 1 Day Friday. I am a smoker. They want to stick gruesome images on cigarette packs. Why not pictures of obese children on McDonald's packaging? Why not tortured animals on cosmetic products? Why not put the photos of the victims of drunken drivers on beer and wine bottles? Why not pictures of dishonest, thieving politicians enjoying our money on tax returns? And now I have extracts from letters written to local councils. It's the dog's mess I find hard to swallow. I want some repairs done to my cooker as it has backfired and burnt my knob off. I wish to complain that my father twisted his ankle very badly when he put his foot in the hole in his back passage. Their 18-year-old son is continually banging his balls against my fence. I wish to report that tiles are missing from the outside toilet roof. I think it was bad wind the other day that blew them off. My lavatory seat is cracked. Where do I stand? I'm writing on behalf of my sink, which is coming away from the wall. Will you please send someone to mend the garden path? My wife tripped and fell on it yesterday and now she is pregnant. I request permission to remove my drawers in the kitchen. 50% of the walls are damp, 50% have crumbling plaster and 50% are just plain filthy. I'm still having problems with smoke in my new drawers. The toilet is blocked and we cannot bath the children until it is cleared. Will you please send a man to look at my water? It is a funny colour and not fit to drink. Our lavatory seat is broken in half and now it is in 3 pieces. I want to complain about the farmer across the road. Every morning at 6 AM his cock wakes me up and now it's getting too much for me. The man next door has a large erection in the back garden which is unsightly and dangerous. Our kitchen floor is damp. We have 2 children and would like a third, so please send someone round to do something about it. I'm a single woman living in a downstairs flat and would you please do something about the noise made by the man on top of me every night. Please send a man with the right tool to finish the job and satisfy my wife. I have the clerk of works down on the floor 6 times but I still have no satisfaction. This is to let you know that our lavatory seat is broke and we can't get BBC Two. My bush is really overgrown round the front and my back passage has fungus growing in it. He's got this huge tool that vibrates the whole house and I just can't take it anymore. Now if you think this is an old joke you'd be right, because the really funny part about this is that now these complaints would be in Punjabi, Urdu, Bengali, Polish, Somali, Gujarati, Arabic, Portuguese, Tamil, French, Turkish, Chinese, Yoruba, Spanish, Pashto and Pacto, Lithuanian, Albanian and Shwip. And the largest laugh is that the French applies to the thousands of African immigrants, not the European French. I think the joke is on us, don't you? You've been listening to The World at 8. I'm Lynn Mozart and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy and a very safe weekend. Stevens will be on the sex offenders register for 5 years. He will also have to pay £540 in costs and a £60 victim surcharge. World at 8. It is just too bad the sentence does not reflect the seriousness of these offences. On one hand the judge says it's serious and on the other you've made a good start by going to class to find out what a bad boy you've been. Paedophile Thishan streamed live child porn from the Philippines and then walks free to care for his child. A paedophile who streamed and directed live child abuse from the Philippines over the internet has walked free from court. Thishan 36, paid as little as $15 to watch adults rape and abuse local Filipino children live on his webcam. The married father of one would then begin online negotiations and direct how he would like the child abused, typing requests that the adult would perform. Southwark Crown Court heard the victims were sometimes even abused by their own parents, who would take online fees over PayPal. It appears this paedophile who orchestrated the sex abuse of a young girl on the net was allowed to walk free by a judge to help care for his baby. What a date. Where is the social services when you need them? Why is this bastard being let off to care for a child? The judges in this country never cease to amaze me. Give them an historic grope case from an old white guy and the judicial frenzy is unseemly to say the least. Whose country is it anyway? Don't answer that. Sex assault doctor Nigerian-born Benjamin Obakofi is allowed to return to work. Leicester, a Nigerian jets, restaurants, luxury hotels, the good life of senior Hamas officials. Send an ambulance father beats homosexual man caught raping 11-year-old. Iraq, ISIS tells shopkeepers in Mosul that mannequins' faces must be covered with Islamic head bags. Alabama, a salutary tale. Thought for the day, a thought on our English gardens. And finally, 2 for 1 Day Friday. Sorry paedophile pays £600 and is spared jail over huge haul of child abuse images. A pervert whose laptop contained more than 7,500 of indecent images of children as young as 6 months has been handed a community order after a judge heard he was sorry for his actions. Michael Mount Stevens hid the laptop from his partner in his loft at his home in Bushbury, but used it to view the images and chat with like-minded people online when she went out, Wolverhampton Crown Court heard Tuesday. Police received information that led them to raid his home in Elston Hall Lane on June the 20th, 2013 and seized the computer. Of the thousands of images were recovered, including 1,568 in the most serious category. Mr Burns said, the overall range of the children depicted goes from 6 months up to the age of 4 or 5, boys and girls. Judge Michael Dudley said there had been a number of aggravating features, but Mount Stevens had shown remorse and taken a course to redress his behaviour. He handed him a 3-year community order with a supervision requirement and a requirement to attend an Internet Offenders Group programme. The judge told him the reason that courts take such a serious view of these cases is the misery and harm it inflicts on very, very young children. It seems to me the good start you've made by attending the course can be continued by a very high-level community order. He also made a sexual offences prevention order until further notice and Mount
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 25th of July 2014. Sorry paedophile pays £600 and is spared jail over huge haul of child abuse images. Paedophile Thishan LIYANAGE streamed live child porn from the Philippines and then walks free to care for his child. Sex assault doctor Nigerian-born Benjamin Obakofi is allowed to return to work. Dutch paedophile club to fight their ban at European Court of Human Rights. French court rules no halal meals in prison.